really asking for it as far as I can tell. Now, first of all, we've got to get this thing to come on. It appears to be. Just take a minute to warm up. So what I'm going to do today is talk about my latest passion, I guess it is that since I retired, I've been involved in doing photography, and I found very quickly that today's world of digital photography, half the time is spent with a computer and not with a camera. And the professional photographers now even actually farm some of this stuff out so that someone else does what's called the post-processing. And so I'm going to demonstrate a couple of things that are done in post-processing and a couple of programs that are commonly used by professional photographers, which I would have to say are perhaps some of the most marvelous creations of software that I've ever actually seen. You can see here there are two programs. One is called Adobe Photoshop Lightroom, and the other one is called Adobe Photoshop, in this case CS6, which stands for Creative Suite 6. And I'm going to start this program, Lightroom. And this program here is used for two things. One, to keep track of your photographs, and secondly, it's used to do some degree of processing. And most of the people who are professionally using their cameras for commercial reasons probably spend the time that's on the computer, at least 90% using this one program called Lightroom. And I'm going to demonstrate a few things that are done in what's called post-processing, which is commonly called post if you're cool. And what we're going to do, first of all, is show you a couple of things that are done with photographs after the fact. This first photograph, which I'm going to just bring up now, is my grandson shortly after he came home from the hospital. And if we have a close look at this, you'll see that what are we going to do here? First thing has already gone wrong. So here. Try this. You can see that he has what this common problem that we often see is called red eye. And red eye, we've all got that, and we take a camera and we blast it right in someone's face, and the retina bounces back the color from the inside. And this poor little kid just came home from the hospital, and now he wakes up with nightmares of strange lights and a big bald alien lurking over top of him. And so one of the things that's interesting about this is that, in actual fact, it isn't all red. So you can't just go in and make this black because it'll look really weird. And so many programs, including Lightroom, have tools that allow you to fix red eye. And what we're going to do here is just have a look at it. The simplest one is here. And we'll just see if we can zoom in a little bit and see if we can find his eye. And you have a tool that if you can see this thing moving around, and if I click it, it marks everything inside the circle and turns it to black. So just like that, you get rid of the red eye. And that's a very easy thing to do with sophisticated software, but if you try to do it with other kinds of software, often you just turn the people all green. They won't have red eyes anymore, but they'll be green. So that's one of the most common things that's done. So the next thing that I'm going to show is to do with real estate. In that, we're going to look at the library module, and we're going to look in here. And we're going to look in here. I had a friend who listed their house, and what happened is that their realtor came in with their point-and-shoot camera and took a whole bunch of really crappy pictures, and the house didn't sell. And they called me and said they wanted me to redo the pictures so that the house would sell. Of course, the house didn't sell. It had nothing to do with the pictures. It had to do with it was priced too high. So I talked to Barry Twino about this a little bit, and it was kind of an interesting conversation. So I went to their place and I slapped on a wide-angle lens, and you can see what happens is that if we ignore the distortion from the wide-angle lens, is that the outside is pretty good, the inside's too dark, and you can't really see very well. So what you can do is you actually can make more than one photograph. You can make another one that's properly exposed exposed for the outside, but then you can see the inside's too dark. Okay, and so this kind of problem happens. You can also make one that's exposed for the dark parts on the inside, but then the outside's all blown out. And so what this has to do with is a problem which is called the dynamic range, which means it's the same thing as if you're driving into the sunrise. You have all this light in your eye and you can't see the details around you, right? And cameras have much less ability to work with dynamic range than our eyes do. So what's commonly done with this is we'll just load this, in this case we're going to load this photo into Photoshop. And we'll go like this and like this. Now we're just going to use Photoshop as a way to run what's called a plugin. And it turns out that there's a whole industry of people who make sort of add-ons for Photoshop. And in this case, we're going to use a plugin made by Nick Software. Interestingly enough, Nick Software just was recently acquired by Google, and so they no longer actually exist. So what you can do is you can select the 3 photos that you had, and then what you can actually do is have the software merge them together so that you get the light places lightened and the dark places darkened. And this particular thing is the slowest thing that's going to happen here, but it does take a minute or so. You have to have a fast computer or you go crazy, because in a slow computer, these are very, very processor-intensive operations. And this particular computer is an i7 running 64-bit Windows 8, which works pretty well. So what the software does is it simply merges all the pictures together and it fiddles around with it. And once said, and this part you think, oh no, it's going to take forever, but fortunately it gets over with. I've done this, I did this a couple of times, and it seemed to only work 3 times out of 4, so we'll have to see how it goes here. So you can see what it did is it made a better image, and it also, they actually have a number of presets, and I'm going to fool around with them, but basically you can set how bright it is and how dark it is and fiddle around, or you can have some that are already done. So we're going to do, we're just going to pick balanced, and then we'll just save the image, and this will write it out, get back to Photoshop, and then we'll have to go and try to find it, which is always seems to be a problem. And you'll see very quickly that the changes that it made, it'll be up there for a second, and then we'll see the new one. Okay? And so now what we're going to do is we're going to save this. And if we're lucky, we'll actually save it in the right place, we'll be able to find it again. Okay, so now it's gone Gonzo, and now we're going to exit out of here.
So Larry, just a quick question. You have to take 2 photographs.
You have to take 3.
3 photographs.
One darker, one lighter, one that's normal. That's only the minimum. Some people take up to 9 or 10 photographs. Okay, and so it's always an odd number though, usually.
Follow-up question to that. Can you not create digital copies, make one image, darken it, make it a second, light?
Right. The trouble is that the camera sensor doesn't have what the dynamic range that your eye does, right? But you actually can with a better camera. So what I'm going to try to do is find that one, which should be in here, and it should be in here, and here it is. Okay, so we'll just import it in. And now we're just going to go into the develop module, and then we'll see what happens now. So we're going to go on to just fixing, allowing for the fact that the lens causes a little bit of distortion. So it'll do that. But interestingly enough, which is really cool, is that you can actually have the software fix the whole picture altogether, right? So we ended up with this. And where we started with
it. King size bed was a queen.
Yeah. One of the things is that Barry Twynham said that sometimes you have to be careful because the picture looks better than the actual real site. They get there and they see it and they're not very happy. So that's how it was when we started. And here we'll see if we can just get this back so we can see what it was when we started. So there's our starting picture, okay, and then here's our finishing one. So you can see there's quite a difference. You can see that you can see in the room, and the other thing is I was using a Nikon D800, which is a 36 megapixel camera, and that if you want, you can actually, once it loads here, it takes a minute. You actually can see a fair amount of detail. This is the bedspread, right? Now that actually, it takes a long time because the picture is so big. So anyway, so you can see that what they wanted to show was that they could go out from their bedroom and from this bedroom into the patio, and rather than having it all dark and dingy, it turned out not too bad. So that's one of the other things it's done with as far as post-processing. So I'm going to do something else now. We're going to go to how to look at this is a picture that I took in California, and what's interesting about it is that this photo has been geotagged, and what that means is that you actually can save the GPS coordinates on the picture, and you actually can see where you were when you took it. So I was standing there on the beach, right where that number 2 is, right? And basically I was there on the beach and I was looking out toward this mound. We were staying at a bed and breakfast that was right here next to there, right in this place right here. So I wandered out at night and at the sunset, and I decided to take a picture of the beach, and the sky was all purple and there were people on the beach, and you could see the sand, and that's what I got. And this is an example of the camera just saying, well, okay, well, we'll try to make it so it turns out. But it doesn't mean that the picture doesn't have the actual information in it. So if you take a look at this and you use, this is just in Lightroom, I just bring up the shadows, you can bring up everything that was in the shadows, right? And it was actually all there. In fact, if you want to, you could zoom in and you can actually see the people on the beach who were there, and they were here.
Lots of it was a nude beach.
It wasn't a nude beach. No. The other thing about it was the sky was all purple and it was really, really bright, but the picture is fairly washed out. So what you can do is, if the purple is actually there, you can go and you can bring it out. So you can crank this up a little bit and you can bring up the luminance, and then to some degree you can actually bring colors out that are not there. So we actually could see the whole beach there and see the picture, where before, if we look at our original one, it was like it wasn't there at all, and it actually was. So many times, just by making adjustments in Lightroom, you can bring up detailed pictures that otherwise wasn't there. You also can, which is something I always have to do, is you also can crop it and straighten it. With these kinds of pictures, often nowadays you can crop it to HD 16:9, and if it's crooked, you actually can straighten it in your crop. So then, the other thing is there's a well-known mystical rule of thirds, meaning that anything that's a major line on the picture should be about at a third. So if we look here at this, we actually need to crop this a bit tighter, pull this down so the third line is open with is even with the top of the ocean, and then we have a picture. So then you come out with a better picture, considering what it was when we started with here, which was that. So that's one of the things that can be done. Now this next one I'm going to show you is a little bit different, in that this is actually a really crappy picture, which is something I'm very good at doing, is taking really crappy pictures. So this one was taken in Montana, cruising along in Montana, and basically I was going down the I-15 here, and I pulled off to the side, and I took this picture. And this picture has all kinds of things wrong with it, so we'll just have a look at it. One of the things is that it has a whole bunch of things that you wouldn't want in it. It has a whole bunch of clouds in the sky, and it has a whole bunch of other junk in it, and it's washed out, and there's a whole bunch of bad things. And I'm just going to use it to demonstrate a few of the things that can be done in Photoshop itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick these two pictures, and I'm going to open them in Photoshop. Photoshop's going to start up and we're going to use it a little bit, so I'll just show you a couple of things. We've got 14 minutes, just so you know. So here are my two pictures. And Photoshop is interesting that it works in what are called layers. And layers are like pictures on top of one another, so I can move them around. So if I pull this layer down, we can see the picture that's there. And so we'll just make it a little bit bigger. And one of the things we got here is the fact that the sky is real crappy. And so in Photoshop, you can select an area of a picture. And this is called, amazingly, the quick selection tool. You can see as I go along, I'm trying to select. Okay, that didn't work. Try again. See how it goes along, and it basically what it does is it looks for a difference in contrast. Once you've made a selection, you actually can refine it. So you can go here. We'll just do this quickly. We'll send it out, say here, we'll say this. So what we've got now is we actually have the sky selected. If we turn everything off, we can just see the sky. And this thing here is called a mask. It's a representation of a complex computer process that covers up part of the picture. In this particular mask, we're going to invert it. So now we have the mountains but no sky. And if we were to turn on this one, Zappo, we have the sky. And so this is made by the two things together. And the sky is actually not exactly really the right color. It's maybe a little too bright, but I'm not worried about that right now. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to look a little bit at this, which I find is absolutely amazing. We're going to look over here at this road sign. Oops. We're going to go back. Somehow we managed to quit. So we'll get started here again. Let's add it in. Photoshop. Everything now. So what happened this time is we opened up just one picture, so I'm going to go back to Lightroom and open up the other one. Then what I'm going to do now is, because they're actually two separate pictures, I'm going to select all of this picture, and then I'm just going to go and move it over to the other one so that it'll be in here. And I'll just straighten it out a little bit, and then I'll put them back in the order that I wanted them, maybe. They don't want to change the places, the little rascal. Okay, then I'm going to do is do my thing to select the sky again, really quickly. And that's not going to work because I'm not going to try her again. Cut the sky, do my select refine edge thing, go and send it out, and be back where I started from when I closed it without meaning to. And then I got to invert this. There I go. Now I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten this image. Flattening means you put all those pictures together into one, so it saves a whole bunch of memory. So you go layer, flatten image down to the bottom. Now, to make this big, go back to what I was going to show you here. So I'm going to make the image a little bit bigger. And we're going to go over here and look at our sign. If you see that there's things in your picture that you're not too thrilled with, there actually are tools to help you retouch the image. And one of them uses what's called content-aware fill, where you just simply select an area and it erases it, and it's built it in with what it thinks it should be there, like that. So, like for example, if you decided you wanted to get a makeup for highway cleanup, you can simply go like that. And you can go any place you want and it'll actually refill it. So if you go over here, there's this can sitting by the side of the road. See? And there's a sign. You decide you don't like the sign. you can go like this, and Zappo goes on. Okay? Now that's, now you can get a little bit more ambitious, and what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to try to get rid of this sign here. Now what's going to happen here is this isn't going to work very well because this is awfully large. And in fact, I'll just go down like this, and we'll see what it does. The bigger it is, the longer it takes to do it, and the less likely it is to work. But, all in all, we'll just save this now. And then we can compare it to our original one, going back to lighting. So here was our, get off of that. Here's our original image, and here's our fiddle around fixed up image, I think. Oops, wrong one. There. So you can see. Now, one of the things that happened was it didn't work so well right here. We actually can't fix that because we don't have a lot of time. So when you see a picture, you can go and take all that stuff out and you can do whatever you want. So that's one of the things. So that whatever you see, you know that it is. Now, a couple of other things I'm going to show is I'm going to show a little bit of retouching of portraits. Now, one of the things about retouching portraits is that you don't really like to do it on somebody that you know in front of a bunch of people who know them. But I'm going to just show you what basically the basic idea behind retouching portraits is really, really quick. So we're just going to open this portrait in Photoshop. We'll edit the copy of it in minutes. We'll make it big. So if you zoom in on anybody's portrait, the more you zoom, the less likely they're going to want you to do it, right? So we'll see what we can do. So if you look at this lady very, very closely, you can see that she has all kinds of a number of blemishes. She has all kinds of freckles and other kinds of marks. She also has a mole right here. And if you're retouching, you wouldn't retouch this mole because if she saw the picture, people who've seen it would know it wasn't her. But what you will do is you pick your healing brush tool, and there's more than one way of doing this. And you go around, you simply go like this and get rid of things that are less than complimentary. And I'm going to do this really quickly, so you can just see you get the idea. So once you've done that, then what you do is you can copy this layer like that, and then in order to make the person look a little better, what you do is you actually blur it. So you can use a filter, which is called adjectively blur. And so there's a lot of menus here. Filter, blur, here. Move this over so we can see. You can see that as it gets blurrier, and what you actually do is you blur it so you can almost not recognize it around here. And you say, okay. Now, you're going to say, well, that's great. What's done now is that you actually go and you make yourself what's called a mask. And you don't go to the eye. And we're going to need to invert this mask to the eye. And we're going to zoom in a little bit. And what happens is that if you were to make areas of this mask white, well then what's beneath will show through. So what you do is you get yourself what's called a brush, which is really basically a control, in which you can make bigger or smaller. And you start painting away. Where you paint on the mask, where you paint, the part from below will start to show through. Now, got to make sure we got the right kind of brush. And that we're in the right mode. And we're doing the right thing there. As I paint, you're supposed to see the white areas that I'm painting out. You can see how I'm going along now? Basically what I'm doing is I'm getting rid of all the things because the blurry one from below is showing through. So I go along, and you don't, of course, blur their eyes, you don't blur their hair. You might want to blur their nose a little bit. And you don't blur their mole. And at this point, you might want to blow a few, get rid or totally on, and you find some place in between that actually looks a little bit better than the original one, right? And so then, we'll go like this, we'll say. We'll just, at this point, we'll just combine our layers together, and we'll just save it. Get out of here. And we'll go with this. Let's see, we've got, here's her after, and let's have a little look and see if we can see it before. Before, that's before, here's after, before, after. But the thing about this is too much, right? You wouldn't really go that much. But when professional photographers are taking like 30 or 40 pictures of somebody, you can imagine they're not actually going to want to spend a whole bunch of time fixing up one particular picture. So I'm going to show you another way that this is done. We've got 3 minutes to go here. We'll go all the way, take this picture and put it into Photoshop. In this case, what we're going to do is we'll just duplicate the layer in the first place so that we can see the before and it'll be a little bit easier. Now, in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another filter, which is called Portrait Professional, which automates the process of doing of fixing a picture. And what you do in this case is you simply select the eyes and the nose and the mouth and the hair, and then you make sure that the face is outlined properly, and then you push a button and it does everything itself. And so when you look at it, here's the after, here's the before. So you can see the difference that it made, right? And basically, many low-end professional photographers who do this, you can see you could go through a lot of pictures really fast. And you can do all kinds of things, like change their color of their hair, change the highlights in their hair, make their eyes whiter, make their head a different shape. And it's all totally automated by this particular plugin. And, so that's one of the things that's commonly done. And so we'll just save this one now. File. So it'll write out the image. And one of the things that this plugin likes to do is change the shape of the person's head altogether. So here's the after and here's the before. So you can see what it did, right? It actually did distort. But it's done subtly enough that people don't know it. So that the last thing I want to do, which I'm almost out of time, he said.
No worries.
Don't worry, Brad said, is I wanted to show this other picture that we did, and what we're going to do is open a file. Here we all are. What we're going to do here is we're going to make a composite. And what a composite is when you take when you change the background of the picture. So basically, the first thing that we want to do is we want to do a quick selection. So we'll just kind of select around the picture. And we'll kind of select down here. And we'll kind of select down here. And we see we missed a little bit of Elizabeth here, so we're going to try to push that back. Then we'll go to select Define Edge. And this, you can see out here how we're missing some of Elizabeth's hair, which is really interesting because if you do this and give the computer a minute, it actually will start to locate the hair that there is there. And you can also go out and kind of paint with your little paintbrush here, and it'll start to bring up the details. Hold on, Judy, just a little bit. Okay, so then we go ourselves out to a new layer. Okay, and there we are. So now at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to invert this. Control I. And then we'll apply it. And then what we do now is go open, and we find ourselves someplace to be. And It was like this, right? Yeah, and you may recognize this place, right? Yeah.
What movie, Matt? Yeah, this is kind of like Star Trek. Beat me up.
And there we are. So that's it. And I don't think there's a lot of time for questions, but if anyone has any questions, yes, come
How
on.
long have you been doing this?
About a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to learn, and it's something that you can keep learning. There's lots to do on this pump that we don't have time. We have to change the tint on us to match the background, because we're a little bit, because it was taken with our pointing shoot just here today.
So you can clean up evidence both in the crime scene and in the photograph.
That's right.
I was kind of disappointed not to hear as much about the assassin bit as I wanted.
No.
You can see how this is a complementary skill, for sure.
Yeah, it is actually, yeah.
Any more questions for Larry? That was fabulous, Larry.
Thank you.